Hello out there, all you wonderful people. This is Andre, the Game Idea Guy. Thank you once again for lending me your time and your ear, listening into another video from me. And this time I'm going to be starting my Heat versus series. And the very first one that you're seeing up on the screen is Heat versus X. I've already done a character concept video and stuff like that. There's a playlist for it. So that'll be available on my channel for anybody who really wants to go ahead and check that out and they want to get to know a little bit more about the character before delving into this. I'm going to go over the original concept character I had, which is the fan character version of Heat, and then go over the version of him that I'm still building in my head, and balance him out in a fight against X, and both versions of the character. Now, the fan version of Heat, which is very much he's very much just a Zero clone, like physically anyway. Like he's a Zero clone. Internally, he's different, but that's something you can debate if you really want to. Like I'm just saying straight up, physically, the fan version of him is a Zero clone. Where Heat is kind of not, so he's not as ruthless as Zero, I would say, and is more hesitant, but he's not as hesitant as X gets to be at times. So that's one of those things with him. He does go back and forth a lot between using his Buster and his Saber. He uses both of them like regularly. It's just how he's balanced out, whereas Zero, you'll more likely see him using his Z-Saber. Like he'll pull his Buster out, but he'll use his Z-Saber more often, and X obviously uses his Buster pretty much all the time, with the exception of 2 games in the X series, and one of them you have to acquire the Z-Saber to even be able to use it. But that aside, Heat's overall general abilities, he has 3 different types of attacks that he can use. One is his standardized set of attacks, which are just his normal Saber and Buster. His second set is his elemental type of attacks, which can generally range from like lightning and fire, which are things he internally can just do naturally. And then he has the third set, which is coded for him to erase Maverick viruses. So he can basically wipe out a virus without a problem. Depending on the virus itself. Like there's a specific one he was created to destroy, but there are other viruses that may prove to be a little bit more difficult. But I guess you could say he's prepped to be able to adjust to it. Now, the last of his set of abilities would be useless against X, because X is not a Maverick, so it wouldn't make much of a difference if he tried to use that power on him. Like, it would literally just be canceled out, because X does not become a Maverick. That said, he is definitely, skill-wise, he's not as skilled as X and Zero. Like just because he's more like a blend of the 2 characters ability-wise, so he's not really as good and focused on each of the individual capabilities as they are. So that's where his weakness would come in comparison to X. So like he's also far less experienced, so he can't really just pull a win out of nowhere. Like it's just not like he's just gonna go ahead, run in head first at X and just take the win. He'd have to be a little bit more tactical, which he can be. Like the character is designed to be intelligent enough to be tactical, but he's also young, so he can be a bit hot-headed, which could work against him. Maybe not as hot-headed as a character like Axel, but he could definitely, that could work against him in the long run if he gets too sure of himself and thinks he has something in the bag that he doesn't. Whereas X, personally, I think X is a little bit more analytical of a character, and that's how I kind of envisioned Heat to be, but not as much as X, because X is that's literally his thing. He breaks things down. Like, whether people really want to think about that about his character or not, he tries to break the situation down and analyze every bit of it. Like, and that's something that I think not very many people are well aware of about that character. Like, when you see how his actions are, that's why he hesitates so much, because he's trying to figure out a way through the situation without having to use brute force. Like, in that kind of, like, it doesn't always work, like, but he does take his time to try to see if there's another option. But in this type of scenario, he wouldn't really have the option, because they have to fight each other. Like, so boiling it down, it wouldn't be a quick fight. Like, either way, it wouldn't be a fast fight. X would have his hands full with Heat, because Heat potentially is very much like X and Zero. Like, he has that close to limitless potential where he can do just about anything by sheer will. So it really takes having a stronger willpower than him in order to beat him. And the same thing for X and Zero. You have to have a stronger willpower than the two of them in order to win. So going down with my fan version of Heat, he'd lose. Like, I don't want to say he would lose, but he would lose. Like, again, it would be a long fight, and he would definitely do some damage to X. But X's capabilities and his potential, he could take Heat out. It would be a drawn out fight, because again, X hesitates. But he would definitely win that fight against the fan version of Heat. Now, my original the concept of the newer version of Heat that I've come up with, he's more variable, like X has with the different variable armors that he can wear. Like, that's how that version of Heat is, where he can replace different parts of his armor to upgrade himself in ways to do things that he couldn't do before. And this version of Heat does retain the ability to create extreme sources of heat with his body. He can still do that, whether it be fire, lightning, plasma. Like, yeah, and this version of Heat gets a plasma type gun, a plasma type cannon, instead of just being able to do lightning and fire. But he doesn't have the anti-Maverick virus. He doesn't have the Maverick antivirus in him, because that doesn't exist in that version of Heat's world. He does not have that. It's not something that is part and parcel to him. He's not completely different from my fan concept, but this version of Heat is a little bit more experienced. He's a little bit more skilled, and honestly, he's a bit more of a thinker. Again, more in line with how X is. Like, and he takes his time analyzing a situation, trying to break it down, rather than going in guns blazing unless he absolutely has to. Like, he can make that decision and be cold and calculating when he needs to, but he prefers not to. So it's within him to be able to strike down an opponent on short notice and not worry about the repercussions of it if he doesn't have to. Like, if he knows he's in a situation where he has to make a snap decision, he's going to be able to do it. Which could be a problem for X, especially if they have to fight each other. That could be a problem for X, because he tends to hold up sometimes and not just go in for the immediate kill when he could. But when I think about the characters against each other, this version of Heat would probably even out with X, and they'd probably draw. More likely because they both wouldn't want to actually fight each other if they don't have to. But in a situation where they are forced to fight, they'd probably come out evenly matched because of the fact that X has all the different armors he can use, and Heat has different armor, like can swap out his armors on the fly at the same time. They probably cancel each other out. Like I haven't come up with all of the different variants of armors for Heat, like, but they would probably more than likely knock each other out. And I think if we exclude the armors, and like, and there's people who will be like, oh, you're just setting up your character to be stronger. Like, but without the armors, I think he would take X. With the armors, I think they would balance out. Unless X goes ahead and, like, and his potential fully unlocks, Heat would take him out. Like, there are scenarios in my, like, I'm looking at the scenarios, like the scenarios, okay, I should put it this way. In the scenario where Heat is just, like, it's just X and Heat, no additional armor parts or anything being used, Heat takes X. With the armors being used, and the variable parts of Heat being used, they even out. But if you take the armors away and X's potential fully unlocks, he would take this battle. So, in the long run, I guess you could say with classic Heat, well, not classic Heat, with fan version Heat, with the Mega Man X version of Heat, X wins. With my more updated version of him, they're typically even. Like, there's a lot of scenarios where X could win because he could get the drop on Heat after analyzing him enough, he could get the drop on Heat, and like in the same thing, he could probably get the drop on him analytically too. But depending on the scenario and possibly the environment, I'd say Heat probably would take the fight more. Like, but it wouldn't be much more. I'd say I'd give him a 6 out of 10. Like 6 out of 10 fights Heat would take. Like, but they're practically even, as far as I'm concerned. Just based on their personalities and how I imagine Heat approaching situations is very similar to X. But that's really it. I don't want to do too much more, like, because there's not a whole lot more discussion I can make about these two characters against each other. So if you kind of like the premise here and get where I'm headed with it, go ahead and let me know. Say, like, comment down below if you want more information on the character. I can definitely put together more stuff for Heat. Like, I'm still working on his story anyway, so like there's a lot more I could do for him. But that's really it for now. Thank you guys very much for listening in. I know this is probably odd, like maybe a little bit boring, but again, thank you very much for listening, and keep your eyes and ears up for more stuff from me. And until the next time, enjoy your games. Peace out.